Back in the day, when I was first starting off on YouTube, I made a video that you may know is the top 10 most overrated games. It is my most viewed video of all time, and it's actually one of the first videos that comes up when you search top 10 most overrated games. Anyways, I've gotten my fair amount of criticism from that video. I personally hate the video, and looking back at it, my reasoning was flawed and the video in general made no sense. I mean, heck, it was made with Windows Movie Maker, so it's bound to be pretty cringeworthy. I always thought I could do better with that video, and now that I have more experiences with making videos, I figured I would redo the list. The only rules are one game per franchise, and I can't use games that were on the original list because that would be too easy just to remake the list. Keep in mind that this is my own opinion, so if a game you like is on this list, it doesn't mean it's a bad game by any means. Except number 1, but I'll get to that later. Also, unless I state otherwise, I do not hate any of these games. So without any further ado, my name is Matt, aka Chunky Monkey Games, and this is, in my opinion, the top 10 most overrated games, Redux.
I'm really feeling it!
On my original list, I placed The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time at number 5. However, since that video, my opinions on the Zelda series have changed quite a bit. This brings me to the game in the number 10 slot, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. This game is not a bad game by any means, but it gets way more credit than it deserves. For example, people praise this game for being dark and gritty without meaning to be, but it doesn't even do it that well. Games like Twilight Princess do that so much better. Sure, the looming threat of the moon adds tension to the game, but that kinda loses its touch after you travel back in time. The 3-day cycle may have been innovative, but it makes the game so repetitive. I can understand that repetition is a part of every game, but this game is so repetitive to the point where you literally get deja vu. Every time I start back at day 1, I find myself wasting time doing side quests that I've already done instead of the main story. The reason this happens is occasionally because I accidentally trigger an event that I didn't want to trigger because it was either on the wrong day or at a different time. Side quests like this work for some games, but this is not one of those games. Games like Skyrim have you doing side quests that don't necessarily require progression in the game, but Majora's Mask basically forces you to progress if you want to get a certain mask, for example. The point of the game is to use your time wisely, which, as I stated earlier, is rendered useless by the fact that you can just start over from day 1 with most of your items. I'm supposed to conserve my time, but I always feel like I'm wasting it when I don't know what to do or attempt a side quest for the 1000th time. The 3DS remake fixed a lot of these issues, but my position still stands that this game isn't all it's cracked up to be. I feel like a lot of this game's popularity comes from the Link is Dead episode of Game Theory, but that's something for a different video.
I'm really feeling it!
Super Metroid is arguably one of the greatest games of all time. It took advantage of the hardware at the time and it still holds up today. So why is it on the list then? Well, you would realize this if you weren't being blinded by your nostalgia goggles. While yes, I agree that Super Metroid is a good game, it isn't the amazing masterpiece it's cracked up to be. Most people praise this game for its ominous feel and unique gameplay, which I can, to an extent, agree with. However, most of the points brought up about this game aren't even valid. That ominous feel isn't really there to me. Ooh, you walk into a room with a broken glass cage and dead bodies everywhere, kinda loses its effect after you basically walk through that area in the beginning of the game with nothing significant happening there other than some speculative plot points if you're playing this blind. I think this location would have made the game feel a lot more ominous if we're at the end of the game or if a boss fight of some kind happened there. I feel like Metroid Fusion was way more creepy and ominous than Super Metroid because in Fusion, you're literally being chased by yourself at full power and there's nothing you can do about it. As for gameplay, it's not bad per se, but at times it makes you sit there and yell, "What do I do? Did I miss something? Do I have to backtrack again? Is there a secret location somewhere?" I found myself doing stupid stuff looking like a confused idiot on stream because I don't know where to get a certain power-up. The game is so unclear about what it wants you to do. Only once you obtain the super missiles, for example, do you know what to do with them. Not to mention there's areas you can get easily stuck in, and because there's no way out, you'll have to kill yourself. To reiterate, Super Metroid is not a bad game by any means, but people praise it for the wrong reasons, which is why you need to look past nostalgia when rating a game.
I'm really feeling it!
Now, I'm not here to rip on Call of Duty. Most of my friends think I hate the series, but I'm actually at a point with it where I just accept that it exists, and if a game looks good to me, then I'll buy it. Now before I get all the whole COD series should be on this list comments, let me clarify that there were good Call of Duty games. Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops 2 are examples of this. However, my beef with this series and number 8 on this list is Call of Duty Black Ops 3. For starters, people say that this game has one of the best campaigns in Call of Duty history, which I personally don't see. For a game claiming to be the third installment in the Black Ops trilogy, it doesn't really do anything to expand on the stories from Black Ops 1 and 2. All we get is slight mentions of Mason and Woods, and that's basically it. It's more of an Advanced Warfare 2, if anything. It tries to pull a mix between Halo and Deus Ex with the whole human evolution super soldier thing, but it could have worked out if it was done properly. The thing that makes Deus Ex's story so great is how it explores the morals of modifying the human body to kill. All Black Ops 3 does is tell you that you're a super soldier and treats you as if you're invincible. And with the campaign's difficulty, you basically are. Even on veteran mode, it's so easy because everything is spoon-fed to you. As far as gameplay goes, it's okay. It doesn't do anything new or memorable. The newest thing they have is a wall running mechanic that was clearly ripped off from Titanfall. I know the term rip-off gets thrown around a lot, but seriously, it's like Treyarch saw the success of Titanfall and straight up copied it. Other than that, like I said before, the game is really just Advanced Warfare 2. As for multiplayer, it's pretty standard. It fixed Ghost's map issue and Advanced Warfare's EXO problem in relation to the maps, but they're also just so bland and forgetful. The game tried to incorporate a class system that's basically rendered useless by the fact that all the classes are the same exact thing by the end of leveling up. If you're going to attempt a class system like this, then you need to make each class unique and have different playstyles. This game does not do that. It does nothing to change up the Call of Duty formula and is not innovative in any way whatsoever. So many people went out and bought this game because they knew who was developing it and they thought it would be better. That's all fine and dandy, but soon enough we'll be hearing people saying that Advanced Warfare was better or it's another year of Black Ops 2. The Call of Duty fanbase is the epitome of overhype for a game that you know everything about beforehand and is so well known by non-gamers that they think that every game is like this. Anyways, I'm ranting, so let's move on to number 7. Oh, and I forgot to mention Doritos!
I'm really feeling it!
Kingdom Hearts is arguably one of the greatest series in all of gaming. It took the idea of crossing over two properties that you would never think of seeing together, Final Fantasy and Disney. This series has a great story and near perfect gameplay, but it's not as good as you say it is. The story is overly confusing and tries to win fans over with fan service. Oh my good god, the voice acting in this game. It was so cliche and you could predict almost anything anyone was going to say, especially the Disney characters. Not to mention this series has some of the cringiest lines in any game ever. You can't have a fun-loving hero make a joke when their friends are dying. The point of developing a character like this is to have them realize that life is serious and you have to grow up, but all Sora is a personification of how kids will be kids. He's like Ash Ketchum before X and Y, determined and can be a hero when he needs to be, but fails to see the obstacles he must face. Also, to me, the whimsical Disney worlds in this series don't exactly fit in with the dark and gritty characters of Final Fantasy. I understand that the point of a crossover is to have the characters and worlds juxtapose each other, but it just feels forced. The gameplay is good, but can get a bit button mashy at times, but you would expect that from a hack and slash combat system. Well, that's all I really have to say about Kingdom Hearts, but oh my god, this is like Half-Life 3 all over again. You want this third installment so bad, but no matter how good it is, it won't meet your expectations and you will still be disappointed. That's not to say I think these games are bad, because they're not. You're just going crazy for a game that you know is in the works, so why is it a surprise to you when it's announced? Now that I think about it, Half-Life 3 wasn't the best comparison.
I'm really feeling it!
When it comes to Sonic games, it's pretty easy to distinguish the good ones from the bad ones. Sonic Adventure 2 is one of the bad ones, yet people still try to defend it. On a little side note, the Sonic fanbase is easily the worst and weirdest fanbase in all of gaming. They try to defend the games that even they know are bad, but they just end up sounding like uneducated morons. Anyways, Sonic Adventure 2 is easily the most overrated Sonic game. The main game itself is tolerable. Decent level design, simple enough combat system, actual speed sections, Sonic Boom! You know, stuff a Sonic game needs. Once you beat the game, it's like, hey, play this game again, and then it gives you the Shadow the Hedgehog portion of the game, which tried way too hard to be dark and gritty. It's also responsible for all the emo kids on Tumblr who think they're deep and emotional, but are really just a bunch of losers in fedoras. It is so unfitting in a game like this, and it just goes to show that Sega clearly wasn't sure of what market to cater to at the time. The voice acting is horrible, and the cutscenes are downright cringeworthy to a point where you're just like, what is this? Why am I playing this? Sonic Adventure 2 is not the best 3D Sonic, nor is it a good game in general. Is it passable? Yes, but it does not deserve all this praise. It's not a good game, and you're not better than anyone for liking it.
I'm really feeling it!
League of Legends. I don't care how competitive you think you are, you will never be like the pro players. Get over it. Your game is no better than anyone else's. Suck it.
You're officially that guy, okay? You know the one. You go to the bar, he's like, this suit is officially is a Giorgio Armani. Ask my dad knows, and fuck you! I ain't having that shit!
I'm really feeling it!
I've joked about this subtly in a previous video, but I've never really given my opinion on the subject. Super Smash Bros. Is considered to be one of the most competitive franchises in all of gaming, and for good reasons. It certainly takes a lot of skill to perform all the frame-perfect combos the series has to offer. However, sometimes people just need to learn to let go of a game. Super Smash Bros. Melee is a perfect example of this. Melee is arguably the best game in the Smash Bros. Series, but people claim it to be this for reasons that make absolutely no sense. For example, many competitive Smash players claim that the game has better competitive mechanics and better characters, which is true, but to an extent. Wave dashing is something that is only in Melee, but does it really change up the formula that much that there needs to be a separate tournament for this game in Smash 4? Sure, it's something that can turn the game around really quick, but it's gotten to a point where it's so predictable. Adding to this, Melee does have some characters that Brawl and 4 don't have, but what does it matter if you only play as Captain Falcon, Falco, and Fox? Do you really care about characters like Pichu and Ice Climbers that much? Maybe it's just me being a complete scrub lord, but I can't watch a competitive Melee match without being automatically confused. Every match is always one or two of the top 4 tier characters always dodging each other for several minutes until one of them loses. Smash 4 fixes a lot of these issues and changes up the metagame by getting rid of things like wave dashing and varying movesets for different characters in the form of custom movesets, and also has some of the characters from Melee that you wind up not being in Brawl. So many people were turned off from Brawl from a competitive standpoint to a point where the community tried to fix it via Project M. Brawl may not have had all the competitive elements as Melee, but a game doesn't have to be competitive to be fun. If anything, Brawl is better than Melee from a technical standpoint, but so many people just don't care. It once again goes to show that people will be blinded by nostalgia, even in competitive gaming.
I'm really feeling it!
We are currently in our 8th generation of consoles, which is a pretty amazing feat for an industry like gaming. With each new console generation, however, there is bound to be remasters. Until Dawn is one of those games. Kinda. Until Dawn was originally supposed to be on the PlayStation 3, but the PlayStation 4 is right around the corner, so it was delayed to be on the PS4. Because of it being delayed, it was naturally highly anticipated. The game revolves around a group of teenagers who meet up again after some spoiler-free events happened a year prior. Little did they know that there's a killer out for them, as well as some strange ancient force at play. The game was initially met with critical acclaim, but it's not really as good as people say it is. The story is a bit pathetic and seems like something out of a straight-to-Netflix horror movie. Now, I haven't personally played the game, but I do know a good deal of the story. All of the characters, despite being based off celebrities, have no memorable qualities. They're just a bunch of overly emotional and idiotic stereotypes that would never work into the plot by themselves. You know, you got the jock, the hipster, the 2 hot girls who hate each other for some stupid reason. They're all there, and it doesn't add to the fact that they're gonna get killed. I found myself not relating or even liking any of the characters. Until Dawn is survival horror, so you would expect it to have some sort of unsettling jumpscare that requires you not to mess up, right? Well, you get that, but to an extent. The only real jump scares are when somebody gets killed, and those are far and few between. The killer is so cliche it's not even funny. He has no motivation for what he does, and there's some sort of spiritual energy driving him or something. I don't know, this makes no sense to me. The game claims to have a focus on exploration, which isn't really there. In certain locations there's only one way to go, which isn't really exploration if you ask me. Until Dawn also relies heavily on quick time events, which I'm pretty sure everybody hates last time I checked. Double standards much? Also, the game isn't even that scary, and I'm the kind of guy who freaks out when there's a blackout. Most of the horror in this game just comes from shock factor or gore. Until Dawn is less of a game, more of an interactive movie. Maybe it's just me and my fear of making decisions, but I can't stand how this game is rated so well when it doesn't really do anything to change up the survival horror genre.
I'm really feeling it!
Oh my good god, is Five Nights at Freddy's such an oversaturated series. There's a good reason Five Nights at Freddy's comes in at number 2, and that is YouTubers. When this game first came out, all the popular YouTubers like PewDiePie and Markiplier started playing this game on their channels, and since then, everybody went absolutely ape over this game. It would not have turned into the series it did if it weren't for them. Now, popularity alone does not make a game overrated. I learned that the hard way from my original list. There are a lot of things wrong with these games. For one, the lore is way overly confusing, and there are very little clues as to which game takes place when. Sure, the game theorists figured most of this out, but they're also the same people who said that Link is dead in Majora's Mask when the lore clearly states that that is wrong. Scott Cawthon has responded to the game theorist on several occasions and said that they're missing a few pieces, so who knows if anything they say is right. Anyways, the lore is more complicated than it needs to be, and there being like 2 different killers who are the same guy, but they're also the phone guy, and man, I don't even know what this is. It's also a bit cliche with the whole ghost kids possessing inanimate objects thing. Probably the worst things about these games is the fact that they lose their scare factor after about 10 minutes going into the game blind. As my friend Corey puts it, all you do in this game is sit around and wait for a jump scare to happen. The problem with the jump scares isn't the fact that they're scary, but more surprising than anything. If the main scare factor in your game is one predictable and easily preventable jump scare, then there's clearly an issue with your game. That would be like watching a horror movie and at the beginning the killer says, "I'm gonna kill a bunch of people because I'm a deranged lunatic." You already know how it's gonna work out, so what's the point of even trying to scare you? The success of the first game spawned 3 sequels in less than 2 years, which is way too fast if you ask me. At least pull a Call of Duty and be consistent with your releases. Anyways, that's not really relevant, but my position still stands that this game gets way more praise than it deserves. Okay, this is where the rage comes in. Destiny is quite literally the most arrogant attempt to release a clearly unfinished game in an effort to make more money. Now before I go any further, I have played through and thoroughly thought out every aspect of this game. While DLC is a completely different topic for a completely different video, it really makes this game suffer. Destiny's 10-year plan is what really makes it overrated. If you don't know, Destiny has a 10-year plan set up by Activision to make even more money out of this game for the next 10 years. It involves re-releasing the game every 2 years, but each time with a new DLC pack attached. But by the way this game was made though, it wasn't always like this. The game was originally going to be and was complete from the start, but then Activision told Bungie, hey, we'll publish your game as long as you cut content to be released later as DLC, and Bungie was like, oh, okay. The game was going to be complete from the start, but Activision had to do what they always do and trick people into buying the new expansion every 2 years. It's so obviously meant to do this, but so many people don't see it. Now some of you might be saying right now, who cares if the game has DLC? Why don't you just play the game and have fun with it? Well, that would be possible if the DLC wasn't necessary to fully play the game. The Taken King adds enemies that you can only kill with the DLC, and if you don't have it, then you can't get to a high enough level to do so. Now the game has added microtransactions, which are a video all on their own, but it's such an obvious way to suck the consumer dry. These microtransactions can be used to buy dances and emotes, but none of these things really affect gameplay, so it's not like it really matters that much. However, this isn't even related to microtransactions, but what really bothers me is the ships. You spend 2 hours grinding and grinding to get enough currency that I don't even remember what it's called, to get a cool looking ship that in theory would be your main way of transportation, but all it is a glorified loading screen meant to distract you from the fact that you're sitting at a loading screen. The game focused on looks more than anything else, which is another reason this game suffered. The trailers emphasized things like an epic story, death-defying raids, and enough content to keep you busy for years to come, but what it gave you was a lackluster story with a lack of effort and creativity, monotonous missions, strikes, and raids, and about 2 hours of actual content. Destiny's story has nothing to add to itself. You get revived by your stupid ghost with no explanation other than it's part of the story. The game has no explanation for anything in its universe. They claim you get the full story when all the DLC packs are released or if you go online and look up the Grimoire cards, but what you're gonna get is something with a lack of heart and clearly an inability to write a decent story. The enemies have no motives for what they do. You're just told to kill them because they're evil. The missions are the same thing over and over again. Go to this location, kill some stuff, okay, you're done. Like I said before, I understand that repetition is part of every game, but Destiny takes it way too far. In the next mission, you go slightly further in the area you were just at. Like, what is the point of going back to the hub, selecting the mission, just to go back to the exact same place you were just at, but this time you go a little bit more into the cave or whatever? Half the missions in this game have you going somewhere and placed in ghosty poop pants on a computer or door or something, and you just hold off waves of enemies. It's so boring. Not to mention that none of the bosses in this game are at all creative. How do you kill this thing? Is it like Zelda where you have to wait for the eye to open, or like Borderlands where there's witty dialogue? Nope, you just shoot it. Just shoot it. Just shoot it. The worst part is the raids. For example, all this thing does is attack you, send you into a different dimension, force you to get back in order to do 5 more damage, and then get sent back in again. What part of this is fun? Well, I guess I have to keep the player's attention somehow by making them do simple tasks over and over again. I could forget everything I've said about this game, all of it, if it wasn't just so boring. After the main story, or at least what's left of it after Activision got a hold of it, all you do is grind and grind for materials and currency to get stuff to use and repeat the process. The reward system is the biggest offender in the whole grinding thing because it's all RNG. You think that doing better in a game gets you better loot, but it's completely random as to who gets what if you get anything at all. Not to mention that the game is so obviously calling you stupid. Here, buy our game so you could buy the 4 $40 DLC packs to experience a forgettable story and play through the same mission 27 times with varying difficulties. To quote a YouTuber that I highly respect, known as Fringy, when I play Destiny, I see no passion. All I see is what could have been an amazing game so obviously neutered and changed for the sole purpose of commercial success. Bungie has publicly denied that there is a 10-year plan for this game, even though their court documents got leaked revealing that they lied to our faces. They're doing it again with player trading. They're promising it, but it's never going to come because it's going to ruin the whole microtransaction system they have going. The game had several builds before the game we have today, and featured things that would have made Destiny a much better experience in general. A complete story, important gameplay features, and actual fun missions. The absolute worst part of it all is how the fans of Destiny know about everything I just said, including the blatant lies, yet still try to defend this game. Destiny is the worst offender in forcing DLC, microtransactions, and a generally incomplete game down our throats. I hate Destiny and the press that it gets and clearly does not deserve with a burning passion. Suck it, IGN. As discussed in my microtransactions video, the whole game is a system to suck your wallet dry, and if we keep supporting these practices, then all gaming will become is games like Destiny. And this is not my opinion, this is fact. Destiny could have and probably was so much more, but now it's nothing but wasted potential. Ooh boy, am I gonna need an aspirin after that one. Thanks for watching my video. This is by far the biggest project I've ever worked on, so I would really appreciate it if you left a like. Also, let me know what you think the most overrated games are. Whether you agree with my list or not, I'm sure we can have a civilized discussion in the comments section. Also, subscribe on Twitter and all that if you want. My name is Matt, aka Chunky Monkey Games, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.